Hi folks, just finishing up a ride here today, about a week out from my event, so we put in the miles but put them in at a reasonable pace. Really not a lot to report, but I thought I would record anyways. The only big difference that I'm seeing here, so the Karoo had auto pause on again, as well as the Garmin, and that seems to have worked actually quite well. The Karoo is showing 256.45 and the Garmin is showing 255. I don't know what the seconds are because the screen's not big enough, or I don't have a big enough field to display that full thing. The big difference is the mileage. I'm not really sure what's up with this again. The Garmin is showing 45.1, this is showing 43.7, so that's fairly consistent, it seems like, with the amount of loss that it seems to be experiencing. And it does seem like, if I'm remembering correctly, that the Karoo is always a little bit low. Or the Karoo is accurate and the Garmin is high again, so I guess we don't really know. I cleaned this up a little bit, although I think I'm going to flip-flop this. The top is heart rate and the bottom is power. I think I'd actually like that the other way around, so I'll flip those around probably for the next ride. I'm getting these pages sort of more to my liking. I screwed up again and I was late for the ride this morning, or late for meeting people, so I once again forgot calibration. Obviously that's way off, although the climb, the grade did seem better. I was on a couple of fairly steady climbs, so I flipped over and it did seem more accurate, and I'm guessing that it would maybe be more accurate if I had been smart enough to remember to set the to calibrate it. I got rid of those 3 ascent fields that weren't displaying because, well, they weren't displaying, so they weren't really providing any useful information. But that's about it. I did actually take a picture of a dolphin in the local waterway, so I'll try to probably mute the audio and stitch that in at the end of this ride. Not something we usually see in the canal here, so I'm actually hoping it was all right. I'm almost thinking I'm going to call the stranding network and just let them know that there was a lone dolphin in there, and it was fighting against the current and the tide, so it really wasn't making any progress. But we'll stitch that in at the end. And I did run the Garmin again. Obviously I haven't hit pause on either or stop on either one of them, so, and I'm mistakenly left Wi-Fi on, so once I stop this and upload it, I'm actually guessing everything's okay, because all the screens look good during the ride and it pretty well matches what the Garmin is showing. So
here's the ride summary, or the ride comparison between the Karoo in purple, the Garmin in blue, for that last ride you just saw the clip of. All these numbers look good. This is confusing, and I've actually just stopped the recording and started it again because I'm stumbling over this a bit. I'm not really sure. I was almost positive that the Garmin was more aggressive in how it did the pause. But this shows that the moving time was longer on the Garmin, so I'm a little bit confused about this, and either I'm doing the math backwards, or it would seem if the Garmin was more aggressive with the pausing, that the ride time would be shorter, and this is off by 1.5 minutes, so I'm not sure I understand what's going on there. Maybe we'll see it in the ride table. But everything else is really good. The elevation is off, and this I guess I'm gonna blame this on the fact that I didn't calibrate, because as you again saw by the previous video, it had me at home at 300 feet below sea level, which isn't correct. The Garmin number is much closer to the number that Strava reported when I uploaded the Karoo ride. So I'm only really uploading the Karoo rides to Garmin, or I'm sorry, to Strava. I think the Garmin app is actually trying to upload them, but because it's basically a duplicate ride, it's not actually taking. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. When it does double upload, I usually just make the Garmin ride private, and that way it doesn't appear to my friends as if I'm trying to double up mileage. Although I don't know what that does to my yearly total, so I may have to go back and I may actually have to go back and delete some of these rides. But anyways, power is, this is funny because it's showing 152, but it's saying +1, so I'm guessing that's a rounding issue where it's just not displaying the number, but it's doing the math on the full number. But everything else is really good here. The speed is off by a little bit, and I don't know, maybe that's an issue of the moving time being different as well. Although same distance over less time would be faster, so that's a little screwy there too. Cadence, everything else is good. Max speed, all this stuff is within, within tolerances. Although the max cadence that's interesting there, that's off by as much as 8. That seems high. And then the zones again are, I think I've got this more squared away, so these are much better. And I'm guessing there's as much variation as there is because the moving time is off by 1.5 minutes. So these are going to show some variation. It's not likely to add up to 1.5 minutes exactly because of just I think some calculation issues with the zones. So it's not going to match up exactly, although the heart rate zones are much closer to that total if we were to add them up. These are actually a little bit high. I think if you were to add those up, it's more than 1.5 minutes. These are actually slightly under 1.5 minutes. So anyway, here's the summary. I don't actually see where that difference would be. So this was we stopped. Actually, I'm actually glad to have this ride to kind of show you guys, because we stopped for about a half an hour for coffee and muffins, and I just left both devices on. I knew they had enough battery, and I was actually curious to see when they would pick up again. So all of this information, I mean, it's 3.5 hours compressed into this size, so it's difficult to see if there are any spikes. I mean, we could zoom in on some of this stuff and look for variation. You can see as you zoom in, there are some little power spikes, but overall the numbers were pretty much identical, so I'm kind of not really worried about that. The Karoo does appear to be a little low here on all the speed, which would make sense because that average speed right here is 0.4 miles an hour low. So again, I'm still not sure why when either one device is reading off the speed sense. It's possible I still have a wheel circumference issue. I keep checking it, and I don't remember seeing the Garmin recalibrate in a while, but I've mostly been riding with the Karoo by itself, so the Garmin wouldn't have had a chance to recalibrate. So a couple of little spikes here in heart rate. I'm not sure what's happened here, and I don't know if I have equal spikes because the blue tends to overtake the purple in some cases. Cadence is kind of spiky for both of them, so, but again, because the number is so good, I can't really, it's probably just a matter of them averaging out slightly differently, or it's possible they're just off by enough to as far as the timestamp goes, for it to appear here. Power is good. This is speed over interval length. I'm not sure if that one really tells us anything. Power, all these charts look good. I'm not sure where it's getting oxygen from. Heart rate, this table looks good. This table looks good, although it's interesting that the Karoo is now high here when the speed is. So I have all kinds of questions. Cadence looks pretty good, and actually with this chart you can actually see the little dips behind here. I don't know why this is showing better to my eyes today, and whether you're actually going to see this on YouTube or not, but you can sort of see the greenish color where the purple is kind of dropping down behind the blue. But that's it. I'm going to turn, let's see, I'm going to clear this for a second. I have one more ride, but it's not a comparison, so it's mostly just, this is our Monday, what we call our casual club ride. We just kind of, we go at the pace of, basically the slowest person, so we just cruise along for an hour, and it's the same course every week. So I don't actually we haven't done this. This is the first time we've done this year, so it actually might be interesting to compare this week on week when I start getting some of that data, although the ride speed obviously is going to change depending on, basically depends on who shows up for the ride. So this all looks good. I think these numbers are comparable. This was actually at 15.5. This was actually faster than normal, because mostly it was fit people that showed up this early in the season. It was still a little chilly, but the sun was out. So, and as expected, most of this ride, it was a recovery ride. That's kind of what it's pegged for. And then there's a couple of little sprint sections. So most of my heart rate is going to be in the endurance zone, zone 2, And then I'm not sure what these sprints are, but I'm not sure how. This is the thing that doesn't really, these intervals don't show up when you're doing comparison rides. They only show up when you're viewing an individual ride. So these charts are obviously much less, or I think they're less interesting when there's nothing to compare to. But this all matches up with what's shown on the summary table. So we're going to stop this now. You don't need to see these rides because they don't really compare. I just thought I would keep up to date with where I'm at with riding. This ride was done obviously just with the Karoo. I didn't put the Garmin on, so there's no comparison. But if you've gotten this far, thanks for watching.
That's what I think. This one's all by itself in the canal.
He's just fighting against the tide right now. That's part of the problem.
He hasn't moved. I've been here 5 minutes.
Same spot.
Same exact spot.
I hope he's okay. Do you know, do they mind the cold water? Because I noticed today they said it's about 40.
Well,
Yeah, he's not getting very far.
Alaska has an abundance of dolphins.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the mackerel and everything are up there. So the dolphins go up there feed.
I wonder if the stranding network ought to know about this guy. Because, yeah,
Well, he's not in water that's,
Yeah, but he's not making any progress either.
He hasn't moved.
For once, we're faster than someone on the bike.
He's headed for the warm